Ensuring that you don't lose any pictures is an important part of being a digital photographer. Today I'm going to be showing you my backup and ingest processing to make sure that all of my photos are as secure as possible and that I don't lose a single one. Welcome to Grant Takes Pictures. I'm Grant and I take pictures. So first I'm going to talk about all of this hardware that I use to make sure that my images stay nice and secure. And then I'm going to talk about the software side to talk about how I back up everything at each step of the way. On the hardware side, as a brief overview, I have my camera, my laptop right here, which is my main ingest machine and my main editing machine. So this is a MacBook Pro from 2-3 years ago now. Still works great for photography. And then I have a network attached storage, or a NAS, made by Synology. As soon as my shutter clicks, my images are instantly backed up and duplicated. I shoot with a Canon 5D Mark III, which has a 2-card slot in it. It has both an SD card and a compact flash card in it. And I have the settings set so both of those cards are written to simultaneously and both have a copy of the image, of every image I take. So that's the first place they're backed up. So even if my memory card fails, if one of those memory card fails, it is highly unlikely both of them will fail unless I get my camera run over by a car or I submerge it in water. If something like that happens, both of them might fail, but in a normal course of events, both of them won't fail at the same time. So as soon as I get home, I take out my SD card and I put it into the SD card slot on my little dongle here. I could also just plug my camera in with a cable, whatever works for you. And I get them into Lightroom. Now I do this the moment I walk in the door. If I've been out taking photos, I walk to my computer and I get the photos off of my camera. Now I do this because very often at the start of taking my camera out to go take pictures, I'll format my cards. And if I haven't made sure that the cameras or that the images are off the camera and onto the computer, there is a good chance that I will accidentally format a card that hasn't yet been transferred to the computer. So the first thing I do when I get home from taking pictures is I get the images onto the computer here. So on the hardware side, the backbone of my setup is a NAS, or a network attached storage. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with a NAS, they are just basically a computer that has room for a couple hard drives. Mine is a pretty small NAS. It only has room for 2 hard drives. It's called a 2-bay NAS. And it uses these large desktop type hard drives. And you can put in whatever size hard drive you want. If I was to get my first NAS again, I would actually get a slightly bigger one that allows for 4 bays instead of 2 bays. That way I could fit 4 hard drives in it, and it would make it a little bit easier to upgrade those hard drives when you run out of space. I started out with 2 4 terabyte Western Digital Red drives, and they were great drives until I ran out of space. I filled up 4 terabytes of data. Basically, when I started doing video, I used up data a lot more quickly. So I've replaced those with a couple of 12 terabyte drives. So I'm going to show you a way you can get some large drives relatively cheaply. Instead of using these Western Digital Red drives, which are designed to be used in NASs and data centers, you can get very similar drives that will work just as well but will be a lot less expensive than a large Western Digital RAID drive. So I'll show you that towards the end of this video. On my computer, I have my NAS set up as a hard drive. So if we look in Finder, we'll just see this down here at the bottom where it says Alexandria. I have my NAS named after the Great Library at Alexandria because it's where I store all of the information I have that I've ever generated. So I figured that was a good name for my giant hard drives that store all the data. So down here in Alexandria, we have a Photos folder, and that's where everything is saved. So when I plug in the SD card, I go directly to Lightroom, and I hit Import, and it asks me where I want to import the images from and where I want to put them. And so I put them directly onto my NAS, onto Alexandria. This ensures that those images are never written to the hard drive of my laptop, and they are written to both hard drives in the NAS simultaneously. The two hard drives in my NAS are set up as a RAID array, and that means that they are a mirror of one another. One of the reasons I would have preferred a larger NAS, a 3 or 4 bay NAS, instead of the 2 bay that I have, is that you get more space for the amount of hard drives that you have in there. With a 2 bay NAS, the hard drives are a perfect mirror of one another. So if you have two 4 terabyte hard drives in there, you only have 4 terabytes of space. So the reason I prefer to have a NAS with more bays and to be able to accommodate more hard drives is that you get more bang for your buck when you have a larger NAS. With a 2 bay NAS like I have, if I have two 4 terabyte drives in it, I only have 4 terabytes of storage because those two drives mirror one another perfectly. But if I had a 3 or a 4 bay NAS, I would still only need 4 terabytes of redundancy to have everything totally redundant. And I don't quite understand why that is. I don't understand how RAID arrays work, which is what NASs use to back up your hard drive. But with a 3 bay NAS full of 4 terabyte hard drives, you would have 8 terabytes of usable space. And with a 4 bay NAS with 8 terabyte hard drives, you'd have 12 terabytes of usable space. Now, a 4 terabyte hard drive is much less expensive than a 12 terabyte hard drive. So right now, to get to that 12 terabytes of hard drive space, I need two 12 terabyte drives. But if I had a 4 bay NAS, I'd be able to have 4 terabyte hard drives, and I would still have that 12 terabytes of usable space. So once I get the images imported into Lightroom, they are immediately sent to the NAS. They skip my laptop entirely. They're never saved on this hard drive. They just go directly to the NAS, and the NAS backs them up. So I have those two hard drives in the NAS that are mirrors of one another. So as soon as they are saved there, they are saved to both hard drives simultaneously. And now I still have 2 copies. So originally I had 2 copies on the camera, on the 2 memory cards. And now I have 2 copies on the NAS. So I can go ahead and format the cards on my camera and get that ready for my next time going out taking pictures. Pop out those batteries, get them all charged up, do everything I need to do to make sure it's ready to go. But I have, on the NAS, I still have my 2 copies fully backed up. But those backups are only here locally. So I have my Synology also backing up to the cloud. I use Backblaze's B2 service, and it takes all of the data that is on my NAS and backs it up to Backblaze. So that way, if something should happen to my NAS, if there's a flood, if there's a fire, if my NAS is completely destroyed, if both hard drives get destroyed simultaneously, I still have a backup somewhere that Backblaze can send me a hard drive and I can restore that once I get a new NAS. So that way, nothing ever gets lost. So that's my basic setup on both the hardware and software side on how I back up all of my images throughout the process of taking the image through, importing it into Lightroom and saving it there. So I had mentioned that I was going to talk a little bit about how to get some cheaper hard drives into your NAS. These Western Digital RED drives that are designed for NASs are fairly expensive. They're high quality drives. They are not overpriced, but they are not your cheapest option out there. So when I had to replace my 4 terabyte drives, when they got a little bit full, I went with some 12 terabyte drives, but I did not go with these Western Digital RED drives. Instead, I got a couple of these Western Digital external hard drives that are designed to be plugged into the back of your desktop computer. Now, what you can do is something called shucking these drives, which means pulling the hard drive out of this external enclosure. And it is basically the same as one of these drives here. The drive that you will find in the external enclosure isn't always the exact same drive. Sometimes you will actually find these RED drives inside of it. I had what are called white label drives from Western Digital. White labels are generally a step down from the red labels, but they get the job done. So a good price point to look for one of these is about $15 per terabyte. I could not wait for the prices to get there. To get that cheap, you generally have to find them on sale. But I needed the drives pretty urgently when I finally bought them. So I paid a little bit more than that. I think I paid about $18 per terabyte when I bought these. Not a huge difference, but it would have been nice to get the cheaper drives. But shucking one of these external drives is a great way to get a cheaper, large hard drive into your NAS. So if you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button below. If you enjoy the content that I bring you, if you look forward to more of it every Tuesdays and Fridays, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, have a great day.